Millionaire's heartwarming laugh turned to shock when this incredible photo was revealed. The laughter that echoed through the grand ballroom felt foreign to Mark Thompson as he surveyed the extravagant decorations, the vibrant colors contrasting sharply with the unease clawing at him inside. He was the man everyone admired, the success story that inspired countless speculations of how he had made it big. Yet tonight, as he prepared for the annual charity gala, a photograph had sent shockwaves through his meticulously constructed world. "Do you remember this?" Sarah's voice broke through his reverie, her fingers brushing over the faded photograph that lay on her lap. In it was a young Mark, no older than 14, standing shoulder to shoulder with his mother, both wearing smiles that barely masked the worry lines etched on their faces. The threadbare apron he wore seemed a haunting reminder of the long nights spent in their family-owned grocery store, struggling to stay afloat. The reality of where he came from collided head-on with the wealth surrounding him, a maelstrom of conflicting emotions swirling in his chest. Caught in a tide of guilt, Mark's hands cradled the picture, his heart pounding to a strange rhythm. That boy's laughter was a stark contrast to the pressure suffocating him now. Memories flooded back, sweating over crates of rotting produce, the haunting echo of silence while his mother worried about the bills, the endless sacrifices she made just to keep the dream alive. A life defined by resilience and love, not luxury. With every raucous laugh echoing through the gala's hall, the distance from that boy felt like an unbridgeable chasm. He hesitated, heart racing. What was the point of the night? To celebrate his achievements or to mask the guilt that clung to him? The very celebration that was supposed to honor success now felt like a facade that could collapse at any moment. He felt torn. What good was wealth if it silenced the memories that shaped him, if it cast shadows over those he left behind? Struggling with the burden of his success, Mark could feel his mind racing, the relentless questions haunting him. Was he truly successful if he avoided his past? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Drawing in a shaky breath, Mark's gaze flicked towards the crowd, a sea of smiles and obligation. He felt like an imposter standing there, knowing that every cheer was only echoing the glitter of his success while the comforting familiarity of his past lay buried beneath layers of achievement. Dread coiled in his gut. Just as he attempted to gather himself, his phone buzzed, a jarring reminder of the life he had stepped away from. An old friend was reaching out, desperate, pleading for help, as they lived through their own struggles. The weight of their dilemma pressed down on his chest, squeezing tight as Mark faced the very precipice of his conflict. Could he ascend in a glittering world when those roots remained? The laughter soared around him, but he felt hollow, tortured by the revelation of those faded photographs. The future he had built now felt as fragile as glass. Could he really move forward without remembering where he came from? His resolve trembled, teetering on the edge of decision, as the night loomed ahead, filled with heartwarming gestures and unspoken pain. Mark's breath hitched as he stared at the screen of his phone, the message from his old friend a stark reminder of a world he had tried to leave behind. The urgency of the plea throbbed in his mind, urging him to act while he grappled with contrasting emotions. A small part of him wanted to dismiss it, to shun the vulnerability it revealed. After all, he had worked hard to escape that life. Yet, another part whispered that true escape wasn't about leaving it all behind, but rather about integrating those experiences into who he had become. He abandoned the crowd, seeking refuge in a quieter space, tucked away from the blaring laughter and endless clinking of glasses. Each step felt heavier than the last. With every stride, the distance to his past seemed to stretch and weave into the fabric of his present. Leaning against a wall, he felt the photograph crumple in his grasp, a painful reminder of the sacrifices that brought him here. The shadows of the past loomed large, and the laughter faded into a dull echo that felt more like a mockery than celebration. He couldn't shake the defensive urge curdling in his gut. Could he truly help someone else while he remained shackled by his own unresolved issues? Mark closed his eyes, his mind teetering between the glamour of his current existence and the early mornings of backbreaking work at the grocery store. Within that memory, he discovered a purpose he hadn't dared acknowledge in years. His mother had dragged herself through hardship with grace, always believing in the possibility of a brighter tomorrow. How many dreams could he rekindle for those who still fought in silence? This thought burrowed deeper, urging him to reconsider what success meant. Was he to merely relish the wealth he'd amassed, or was there a duty tied to it? The notion that others could benefit from what he had achieved sparked a flicker of hope within him. If he were to step into the lives of those still battling daily demons, he might reclaim a piece of himself that wealth had never touched. He pulled out his phone, hesitating for a moment as he stared at the message from his friend again. The vulnerability demanded a response. A simple act of reaching out could unlock his past, bringing it forward to fuel a newfound purpose. Before he could rethink it, he began typing, eager to bridge the divide that had formed between their worlds. "Hey, I got your message. I'm here for you. Tell me everything." The words settled like a solemn promise. As he hit send, the sense of unburdening washed over him. The weight didn't lift entirely, but it became more manageable. With a renewed clarity, he envisioned a path leading beyond the concerns of popularity and prestige, into a realm where he could genuinely make a difference. However, returning to the gala felt daunting. What would his peers think when they caught wind of his new ambitions? How far would he be willing to go to face their judgments, knowing that true authenticity might come with scrutiny? Questions chased him like shadows, darker and denser. The glimmer of hope was interwoven with the fear of rejection. Decision loomed over him. Was he ready to confront not only their perceptions but his own insecurities? Taking a deep breath, he stepped out of the makeshift retreat and into the thrumming heart of the gala. As the laughter swirled around him, he realized he stood at a crossroads. The personas built of wealth and success flickered, and the authentic Mark hungered to emerge. The question remained, could he truly chase this new purpose while remaining true to himself? His heart raced as he scanned the crowd. A vital confrontation awaited. The next step wasn't just about making charitable contributions, it was about embracing the very essence of who he was. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that this journey was only beginning. What awaited him amidst those facades? The time had come to face the undeniable truth. The real challenge lay ahead. Mark stepped back into the noisy chaos, the warm glow of chandeliers reflecting the glint of polished surfaces. It was a world he once knew as home, yet it felt eerily foreign now. The laughter seemed to pulse against his chest, each chuckle a reminder of the serious undertones of his recent thoughts. He was no longer just a man desperate to fit into a glittering environment, he was a man tethered to his past, fortified by the weight of his choices. As he navigated through elegantly dressed figures, he caught snippets of conversations, plans for extravagant vacations, the latest luxury purchases, hollow displays of achievement designed to impress. This facade felt heavier than he remembered. Would they view him as a deserter for his urge to help? What would they think of someone who wanted to connect over compassion rather than material success? He spotted a familiar face, Sophia, a woman whose laughter had always attracted attention. She was well regarded in their circles, her influence evident in the way she commanded conversations. As she smiled and waved him over, Mark faltered momentarily. Would she recognize the shift in his focus? Would his change in direction be viewed as weakness rather than strength? "Mark! It's been ages!" she exclaimed, pulling him into a firm embrace that reeked of expensive perfume. "You've been off the radar. We were starting to wonder if you'd checked out for good." "Just taking some time to find my footing again," he replied, forcing an easy smile. "Find your footing?" she echoed skeptically. "What does that even mean? You're at the top of your game. The past is behind you. What else is there?" Her words stung, not because they were unkind, but because they echoed doubts he had long buried. Did she see him only as a caricature of success? Here he was, grappling with the authentic self he wished to reveal, yet she was anchored to her narrow view of him. He felt a flicker of determination surge within him, settling quickly into an abstract thought. Was he about to let her diminish his new vision? As a matter of fact, Mark began, surprising even himself, I've been thinking about how I can use my abilities to help those in need. There's more to life than just wealth, right? Sophia narrowed her eyes slightly, clearly caught off guard. Her laughter fell silent, replaced by an uneasy curiosity. What do you mean? She asked, tilting her head in an almost childlike way, as if trying to piece together an unsolvable puzzle. I mean, he hesitated, sensing the room's attention gradually shifting toward him, there's more beyond what we accumulate. I've been reflecting on how to share what I've been given. The pause that followed felt electric, as though the curious onlookers were weighing his words. Fear wove itself back into his fabric, tangling with the courage he had summoned. What if he failed to articulate his vision? What if his new aim was met with scoffs instead of empathy? But courage has its way of surprising. It might sound foolish, but I want to use my resources to help individuals like my mother, who work tirelessly for the chance of a brighter future. I want to be part of restoring hope. Gasps spread through the group, as Mark's bold declaration hung palpably in the air. The silence thickened, and for a fleeting moment, he felt liberated by the sheer act of reclaiming his narrative. Unmistakably, it was a critical pivot, a pivot that demanded attention and respect. As Sophia opened her mouth, poised to respond, Mark's phone buzzed insistently in his pocket, the screen illuminating with a new message. The relief of shifting the atmosphere dissolved, as did the flickering doubt within him. Just then, he realized, coming out from behind the wealth wasn't just a challenge to his peers, but a challenge against his own fears, laying waste to the remnants of the man who used to shrink away from vulnerability. With every heartbeat echoing his resolve, he acknowledged that the ensuing conversation wouldn't just define him in that moment, it could redefine him for a lifetime. He glanced at the phone, heart racing anew, wondering who could be so urgent now. Would it support his mission, or open old scars? A decision loomed before him. Was he ready to dive deeper into this newfound calling, unconcerned with the laughter surrounding him? Mark's eyes flicked back to the phone, a pulse of anxiety tightening his throat. The message was from his old business partner, Jason, who had been trying to reach him ever since Mark began to withdraw from their lavish lifestyle. The message simply read, "We need to talk. Urgent." Suppressing the swell of dread rising within, Mark's gaze darted back to Sophia, whose intrigued expression indicated she was waiting for him to continue. He had stepped into this moment with courage, yet the prospect of facing Jason loomed ominously in his mind, a reminder of the path he'd chosen to escape, a weight that felt far heavier than any social standing he had once embraced. "Excuse me for a moment," Mark said, maneuvering away from the gathering crowds and retreating to a quieter corner of the room. His heart thudded with each step, and his vision narrowed. The allure of the past, glittering and deceptive, beckoned him like a siren song. Once out of earshot, he opened the message with trepidation. Jason was a figure powerful, charismatic, a man shaped by the desire for relentless growth. Yet he had become a catalyst for Mark's self-doubt too. How many times had they basked in hollow victories, celebrating milestones that did little to fill the emptiness inside? Taking a deep breath, Mark typed a hesitant reply, "What's going on?" He needed to clarify the message's urgency. Did this pertain to business? Had something gone awry with one of their ventures? Anxiety pricked at his insides, while he yearned to launch into a meaningful new chapter. The bonds formed in ambition were not easily severed. Almost immediately, Jason's reply came back. "A lot has changed, Mark. I think you should hear about it in person. Come to my office tomorrow." Mark's heart sank at the prospect. The professional landscape he was gradually pulling away from was pulling him back again. Torn between loyalty and a desire to pursue what felt morally significant, he felt the fear churn in his stomach. He had envisioned how he'd face every challenge ahead, and yet here he was, caught in a fresh dilemma. As he mulled over his response while staring into the impossible depths of the gala below, a flicker of determination ignited within him. This was a test not just of his resolve to change, but of the growth he still had ahead. Could he break away from Jason's looming influence, from the past that still had its grip on him? Would he allow himself to be swayed by the business empire that now felt like a gilded cage? Pushing his phone into his pocket, he forced himself to think about the voice that had spoken up earlier about hope and compassion. Would he rather forge ahead without compromising his values, a path far less traveled? To remain true to his vision, he needed to confront both Jason and the life he was gradually stepping away from. When he returned to the group, he could feel Sophia's gaze sharpen. The moment had shifted once again. In her eyes, he sensed a question igniting what had changed. Would he redirect his focus or revert to familiar comforts? "Everything all right?" Sophia inquired, her voice layered with curiosity and something else, perhaps concern. Mark steadied his resolve. "Actually, I have to make some choices about the direction my life is taking." The words hung between them like the delicate flutes of champagne in the air, a bittersweet weight. Could he share this new conviction? Could he let her see that strength was no longer measured only by wealth, but by one's ability to be unflinchingly honest? He hesitated, the laughter and music of the event swirling like a tempest around him. Outside, a new life awaited, yet the winds of old attempts still howled within his heart. "I can't ignore the call to do more. I'm going to take a leap," Mark asserted, the clarity of it sending ripples of energy through his body. Moments before, he had felt tethered to the past, and now the horizon beckoned. Sophia's brow furrowed, her response drowning in newfound scrutiny. "And what will that leap cost you, Mark?" His body tensed at the rawness of the question. It wasn't merely about the career he could abandon, but about the person he could become. With every beat of his heart, the daunting significance of that leap sharpened what stakes lay in giving flight to his new self. His internal compass was spinning wildly, urging him deeper into uncertainty. But he knew the conversation ahead with Jason could have lasting repercussions. Would the gravity of this juncture pull him back down, or set him soaring upward, as he so desperately hoped? The world around him faded, time dilating in the face of an unyielding decision. Was he prepared to break from everything he had ever known? Mark took a hesitant step back from where the energy of the gala blurred into a cacophony of laughter and extravagant conversation. Outside, the night seemed to swell with possibility and yet weighed heavily with the past. He closed his eyes to push away the waves of nostalgia threatening to crash over him. Tomorrow would be a reckoning with Jason, a confrontation that could either solidify his newfound direction or drag him back into the familiar spiral of ambition that left him hollow. The image of Sophia lingered in his mind. There was a sense of connection, an unspoken understanding that resided just beneath the surface, as if she could sense the shift within him. The moment had been electric, filled with a mix of apprehension and hope. Should he involve her in this journey? The thought was tempting, but sharing his burden also meant risking disappointment. He inhaled deeply, embracing the stillness within the chaos. This was his story now. No longer would he be merely a pawn in someone else's game. He needed to assert his independence, to probe deeper into the many facets of himself he'd neglected. He was a multifaceted individual, shaped by experiences from failure to triumph, and yet far too eager to disregard his own potential. The quiet of this corner created a sanctuary, if only for a fleeting moment. Mark scrolled through his phone, searching for resources to bolster his resolve, to reframe his narrative. Blessed with a proactive mindset, he began to jot down key attributes he had exhibited throughout his career. Critical thinking. Flexibility. An eye for opportunity. He was more than just a man entangled in the murky quality of wealth, he was someone capable of transforming challenges into innovative responses. Collectively analyzing these strengths sparked a new internal dialogue. Each word he penned bore significance, acting as a declaration of his intent. What if he applied these very attributes outside his comfortable world? He could cultivate ideas that were not solely profit-driven but were instead anchored in purpose. The tavern-oozing allure just moments ago now felt suffocating. With a newfound resolve bubbling within him, he sought out Sophia, who was engaged in a light-hearted conversation with a few guests. She caught his eye immediately, the warmth of her smile juxtaposed against the frigid uncertainty he felt inside. Mark approached, his mind swirling with thoughts of potential collaboration, a desire to express his evolving intentions. They had shared this intoxicating connection, and he could feel the universe urging him forward, nudging him to take that leap he had spoken about just moments ago. "Sophia," he said, his voice steadying as he drew closer, "mind if I steal you away for a moment?" She turned towards him, her expression a concoction of curiosity and intrigue. "What is going on in that mind of yours? I think I need to be honest about where I'm headed. It's time I stopped whispering my aspirations to myself and started declaring them." Each word held weight, a surge of empowerment punctuating his realization that he was on the cusp of greater self-discovery. "Mark, what are you saying?" she pressed, her eyes widening with interest. "I believe there's more to life than just the success I've known. I want to create something meaningful. Something that could challenge the status quo. Something that comes from the real you," she finished thoughtfully. The microcosm of the gathering faded as he allowed himself to dream openly a venture rooted in integrity. Ideas began swirling about providing mentorship and resources to budding entrepreneurs who lacked access to traditional avenues of opportunity. A heady rush engulfed him. What he had once thought to be a naive dream of significance morphed into something tangible, potential swirling in his mind like a whirlwind. He could feel a new destiny beckoning, but also foreboding shadows lurking at the edge of this vibrant vision. "Tomorrow, I'll meet Jason. I need to hear his news, but I also need to make my stand," he asserted, eyes sparkling with resolve. "Just remember," Sophia cautioned softly, "decisions made in moments of clarity can easily be muddled in the fog of old habits." Her words dripped with wisdom, grounding him amid hopeful aspirations. He could almost hear echoes of Jason's influence haunting him, begging for him to return, dragging him back with promises of comfort and false security. The journey ahead twisted into uncertainty, but the merging of aspirations within him tasked him with the need to face the uncomfortable and embrace the unknown. Mark's heart thundered with both excitement and trepidation, as he prepared to step onto that precipice with all the power he could summon. Tomorrow was not just a meeting, it was a doorway, one that held the power to either restore his ties to the old life or propel him into uncharted territories. Would he dare to challenge the voice beckoning him to retreat, or would he claim the courage necessary to stride forward? With every shared dream, every resounding word, the path was laid, and now, it was only a matter of choosing to walk it. The time had come for everything he had ever known and everything he wished to become to collide in a single moment. Just as certainty coalesced, doubt surfaced, flickering precariously like a candle in the wind. Was he truly ready to confront the ghosts that Jason embodied, or were they rooted too deeply in his psyche to be vanquished? With each passing second, the horizon loomed closer, pulling him toward an unwritten story. The sun peered through the slats of Mark's blinds, casting angular shadows that danced across the room. Morning light often heralded opportunity, yet today it felt like a spotlight, intensifying the weight of his decision. He rolled out of bed, heart racing with the anticipation and dread of what lay ahead. Today was not just any day, it symbolized a potential pivot point in his life. As he prepared for the meeting with Jason, Mark examined himself in the mirror. The man staring back seemed more robust than he remembered. This encounter would demand more than just confidence, it required clarity of purpose. Each day for years, he'd adhered to rigid expectations, conforming to a role that felt more like a shackle than an identity. He straightened his tie, every pull a reminder of the independence he craved. Sophia's words echoed in his mind. Decisions made in moments of clarity can easily be muddled in the fog of old habits. With that mantra swirling around, he began to mentally dismantle the layers accumulated over time. Yes, his career had bloomed in the garden of ambition, but he had to cultivate it differently. Steps toward a new venture involving mentorship and opportunities for aspiring entrepreneurs began to bloom within him. What would Jason say? Would he dismiss this newfound path as idealistic naivety? The anticipation gnawed at him as he navigated the morning traffic. 1,000 scenarios played out endlessly, each more daunting than the last. But beneath the trepidation stirred excitement, an unfamiliar yet intoxicating feeling that was urging him to articulate his vision fully. Upon reaching the office, the atmosphere pulsed with an electric tension. He could feel the presence of Jason before he entered, an unseen weight that hung over the boardroom. This was the cage he had vowed to break free of. As colleagues exchanged knowing glances, the dim brightness of the room felt less inviting, more like an arena that would bear witness to his struggle for liberation. When Jason finally walked in, his presence commanded attention. He moved with an air of confidence that had always inspired awe in Mark, a barometer of success woven intricately with an unyielding adherence to convention. But today would be different. Today, Mark stood not as an underling but as an architect of his destiny. "Mark," Jason's voice boomed, pulling the weighty silence in the room. "Glad to see you. I've got some opportunities that could really elevate your profile, and I think you'd be a perfect fit." The grandiose words were imbued with the lingering scent of the past, an offer laden with conditions and expectations that shackled rather than liberated. "I appreciate that, Jason," Mark said, his voice steadier than he felt. "But I've spent a lot of time pondering my path. I want to discuss a different direction." Anxiety sparked within him, yet beneath it surged a wave of empowerment buoyed by clarity. "I'm looking to create something more meaningful, something that gives back." Jason's expression shifted from surprise to skepticism. "Meaningful? Mark, come on. Those are nice words, but we're in a competitive industry. You can't just what?" Mark interrupted, surprising even himself with the force of his conviction. The room tightened around them, the stakes echoing louder than ever. "I have the skills to make a difference, to impact lives, beyond just the profit margins. I've been hiding behind your shadows, and I'm done." Silence enveloped the room, thick with a palpable tension. Mark's heart thundered, conflicting feelings swirled as he processed the unexpected confrontation. Jason, usually so articulate, faltered, a gesture Mark rarely witnessed. In that moment, Mark saw a flicker of uncertainty in Jason's typically assured demeanor, and for the first time, he registered the cracks in Jason's crafted facade. "Mark," Jason said slowly, searching for the right words, "you know ambition and success are built on relationships and networks. You think you can operate outside of that?" In that moment, a surge of internal fortitude surged through Mark. "I want to operate within integrity, Jason, not just ambition. I have resources and an eye for opportunity. To hoard those within familiar walls feels hollow." The thoughts rushed out like a flood, and he didn't back down. "I'll work to uplift and mentor those who are often overlooked. I've seen too many great ideas stifled by the fear of failure. That's what I choose to invest in now." Jason stared at him, the transformation evident but unacknowledged. The tension in the room reached a tipping point. Mark could feel eyes boring into him, witnessing a confrontation no one had expected and holding their breath for its outcome. "Are you prepared to risk all that you've worked for?" Jason asked. It sounded less like a question and more like a warning, a plea to tread carefully along the precipice of ambition he'd so laboriously built. Mark felt the careful balance wobble, the backlash of doubt welling inside him. Yet, summoning every bit of courage, he realized there was no turning back. "Absolutely," Mark replied, the assurance quelling the flickering doubts. "That's what true success means to me now, and I refuse to let myself be confined anymore." In that charged atmosphere, the unwanted tension morphed into an emerging clarity, a realization that his purpose was larger than traditional success. As the murmurs of the room receded into a silence that felt electric with potential, Mark could feel the weight of anticipation swelling within him. Would Jason accept this new vision, or would he remain ensnared in the mire of tradition? More fundamentally, Would Mark be able to navigate the uncertain landscape ahead, having sparked both a rebellion within himself and a confrontation with the very foundations he had once relied on? As they locked eyes for a moment, Mark understood that everything had changed. He stood at the threshold of a new narrative, vulnerable yet resolute, poised to rewrite his destiny even if it meant facing the backlash that would undoubtedly follow. The road ahead was fogged with uncertainty, yet there was a burgeoning knowledge within him, a calling to rise to the occasion. This was just the prodigious beginning. The time had come to embrace the unknown and forge forward, but the lingering question pulsed unbidden at the back of his mind: would he abandon the gilded cage of his past, or would the shadows of familiarity ensnare him back within their clutches? The next few days unfurled like a tightly wound coil, with each tick of the clock heightening Mark's sense of urgency. A mixture of exhilaration and trepidation set the tone as he navigated his work and personal life, grappling with the consequences of his bold declaration. The office atmosphere, once familiar and unyielding, now felt alien. Colleagues watched him with a mix of curiosity and skepticism, their whispering conversations punctuated with half-smiles as he passed. Mark found himself spiraling through layers of self-doubt and motivation, his thoughts an intense monologue that oscillated between inspiration and fear. He had taken a leap, yet the ground felt precarious beneath him. The vision he had so passionately articulated to Jason brewed questions in his mind: was he really capable of this shift? What did success mean in a world driven by profit margins and networking? Each evening, he battled with the mirror, this time demanding clarity. If he wanted to build something substantial, he needed more than ideas, he needed strategy, direction, and a plan. The evenings became his sanctuary where he mapped out the kind of mentorship program he envisioned. He scribbled notes, developing an outline for a curriculum that focused on entrepreneurial fundamentals and emotional resilience. But the well of ideas quickly met the harsh reality of his current situation. Could he pull this off amid his existing corporate commitments? By the end of the week, tensions reached a boiling point. Jason summoned him again, this time with a different energy, one that felt laden with urgency. As Mark approached the conference room, he could sense the division in Jason's demeanor. Was it annoyance, concern, or curiosity? As he entered, Mark noticed the restlessness in Jason's posture, the slight furrow of his brow suggesting an internal battle. "Mark," Jason began, leaning back in his chair. "I can't get your proposal out of my mind. Change is never easy, and I've been thinking maybe I misjudged you. You seem more determined than ever, and it's throwing me off." Jason's voice, usually a beacon of authority, wavered with uncertainty that resonated within Mark. "Maybe it's time we examined what success really looks like," Mark replied, the words flowing out before he could second-guess them. "I'm not asking to burn bridges, but rather to create new ones." He felt a surge of adrenaline, realizing he was positioning himself not just as a target of scrutiny but as a potential changemaker. The ensuing silence clung heavily, and Mark studied Jason's expression for any sign of vulnerability. Was this an opportunity or a pitfall? Mentoring isn't just about workable ideas, though certainly valuable. "I want to foster resilience, encourage failure as a stepping stone to success," he asserted, testing the waters. This was new territory. He wanted to believe it would resonate. "Few people operate outside of established paradigms without consequences," Jason cautioned, furrowing his brow again. Mark could see the struggle behind Jason's eyes, internalized fears of stepping away from the well-trodden path that had defined their industry for so long. "Then let us create a narrative shift together," Mark countered, realizing this conversation was revealing truths he hadn't fully grasped until now. This was more than a pitch, it was a collaborative vision. "I'll need your guidance, your influence, even to start working this into the fabric of what we already have. But only if you're willing to risk the conventional." Jason leaned back, visibly torn. Mark recognized a depth of shared struggle within him. They were both standing at a crossroad, grappling with a choice driven by the same ambition that had once bound them. "Risk often cultivates greatness," Jason finally responded, though doubt still lingered in his tone. "It can just as easily lead to ruin, Mark." Mark's resolve solidified in that moment. Isn't that the essence of innovation, though? Without risk, how do we evolve? A charged silence settled over them. Mark could feel Jason's conflicted energy spilling into the room, pressing against the walls like dynamite ready to ignite. As their conversation deepened, a flicker of possibility transformed the atmosphere. They began piecing together the initial stages of what would eventually become a real program, mentorship that would strive to bridge the expanse between corporate expectations and individual aspirations. Yet, in the recesses of Mark's mind, another question brewed: could they navigate the inevitable pushback from not just the industry, but from themselves? The intensity of the unfolding plan ignited an undeniable drive within Mark. Yet, lurking beneath, a chill gripped him, a sense that the very foundation he hoped to build was sinking into uncharted waters. As he left the meeting, Mark couldn't shake the feeling of impending challenge. Would he and Jason truly cultivate this vision, or would they be met with fierce resistance? Doubts crept in, filling the spaces left vacant by certainty. But now he accepted that discomfort; it was part of the challenge. At home later, he scribbled feverishly, maneuvering through every obstacle he envisioned. The path ahead illuminated with potential yet shrouded in complexity. Change was never smooth sailing. As he reflected, the weight of their newfound collaboration pressed down with both anxiety and exhilaration. Would they indeed summon a collective will to transform not just their own trajectories but those around them? Mark glanced at his notes, feeling the flicker of possibility ignite within him once more. The time had come to take that next leap, yet he could not ignore the gravity pulling him back to what he knew. Would the next phase reveal more than simply mentorship, something grander entirely? As the days rolled into the next week, Mark found himself caught in a relentless loop of anticipation and self-evaluation. What began as seeds of determination now cultivated an urgent need to solidify his vision. He had committed himself to transforming not just his position, but the entire mentoring paradigm within his company. Each morning, his pulse quickened as he pored over his notes, dissecting every detail, every potential outcome. He felt a shift within him, a fire that burned brighter as he envisioned how he would lead this change. But internal fear whispered incessantly. Every time he contemplated the risks involved, a voice echoed, "What if it fails?" Mark understood now that failure was not a villain, but a teacher. That realization invigorated him. He recognized that the real battle was against the doubts that gnawed at his confidence, both self-imposed and external. In the evenings, Mark dug deeper into research, learning about successful mentorship programs beyond his industry. He studied pioneering figures in entrepreneurship, and he adapted elements he thought could resonate with his contemporary audience. But just as he suffocated beneath the weight of materials, a stray thought arose: what about the tangible experiences of my colleagues? Drawing courage from that epiphany, he decided to address his peers directly. Discussion sessions would be pivotal, a chance to cultivate a grassroots level of support. By inviting constructive criticism and input, he transformed the formality of his proposal into something collaborative. This shift in approach infused excitement. It became not just his project, but a collective endeavor. On a fateful Thursday afternoon, he gathered a small group of colleagues in a conference room, allowing them to discuss the concept freely. Transparency saturated the air as they shared their stories, what mentorship meant to them, what deficits they felt carried, and how failures had sculpted their professional identities. Each voice melded into a symphony of aspirations, and Mark absorbed every word. Their honest feedback became fuel for his program outline, enhancing his vision. Yet, during those exchanges, Mark also started noticing the divisiveness he had feared. While some championed his endeavor with enthusiasm, others suited themselves with skepticism, rooted in a fear of change that had lingered for too long. Was he ready to face the confrontation that lay ahead? After the session, Mark's excitement dimmed slightly as he lingered over his notes. How could he convert those who remained doubtful? Real change necessitated overcoming resistance. Steering this ship wouldn't be smooth; he had to confront the barriers head-on. What resonated in his gut was clear: their doubts came from a place of self-preservation. But he knew that in moments of stagnation, true innovation could feel like unwelcome chaos. Jason's support remained critical, and so Mark sought another meeting, one where he would ask for explicit backing for the program. As they sat across from each other again, Mark laid out the development thus far, his heart racing. With every conversation, the vision expands. I need your power, your belief in this to take it further. He could see Jason's brow furrow, the same internal battle raging behind his facade. Mark, what you propose is audacious. You know that, Jason replied. If we push too hard against the tide, we risk alienating those who resist. The tension in Jason's voice hinted that he still stood at a crossroads himself. Isn't that exactly why we need to move forward? Mark challenged gently. We can't afford stagnation any longer. Mark surprised himself at how firmly he stood his ground. For every ounce of doubt exuding from the atmosphere, he began feeling an undercurrent of resolve shimmering underneath. Change required leaders who would confront fears, not shy away from them. You either cultivate resilience or succumb to inertia. As he left the meeting, the energetic hum of possibility buzzed through him again, yet a chill settled in his stomach. Would Jason's hesitations morph into commitments? The fear of potential backlash loomed ominously ahead, but was he prepared for the personal stakes unraveling beneath? Mark's resolve was palpable, but his journey had only just begun. With a vision coalescing, and unity still uncertain, Mark sat down that night, feeling a bittersweet clash of anticipation and anxiety. Faced with the reality of the precipice before him, he pondered, not for the first time, how far was he willing to push, and would everyone tumble with him into the unknown? A sense of urgency spread through him, awakening somewhere deep that was yearning to break through the mundane. Mark knew change wasn't simply about mentorship, it was about transforming core beliefs. But in that undertaking, what further truths would he discover about his own resilience? Would he have the fortitude to face the challenges ahead? The following morning found Mark still ensnared by that pressing urgency. He opened his laptop to a blank document waiting to be filled. It felt like staring into an abyss, but now it beckoned him to leap. The path wasn't merely about drafting a proposal anymore, it was about weaving new narratives and enacting paradigms that could redefine what it meant to mentor within their company. He tapped furiously at the keys, letting his thoughts rise to the surface. What if mentorship were not solely about knowledge transmission? He mused. What if it were about emotional safety, cultivating vulnerability among peers? Those questions began to shape his vision for the program. He wanted it to be a space where failures would be acknowledged in strength, not brushed off as weaknesses. That afternoon, he decided to engage his skeptics more directly. Instead of fearing their resistance, he would invite it into the conversation, transform it into a bridge rather than a barrier. It was time for additional sessions to gather not just support, but also genuine concerns that needed addressing. Ignoring dissent would only breed resentment, he resolved to confront it head-on. In his next meeting, Mark approached a group he knew had remained distant. I want to hear from you. I see the skepticism, and it matters. What do we need to change to get on the same page? The air was thick with reticence. Some exchanged glances, others buried their faces in their notebooks as if pondering escape routes. Gradually, one colleague, Amelia, broke the silence. It's not that we don't want change, she said, hesitantly. But your proposal seems huge. It sounds overwhelming. What if it leads to more chaos instead of structure? Mark absorbed her feedback, recognizing her apprehension as a reflection of many voices. I hear you, and I appreciate that. Maybe the ambition is intimidating. Perhaps we can break it down into achievable steps, he countered, determined to reaffirm his vision while anchoring their fears. The dialogue shifted, skepticism morphed into constructive criticism. They discussed aspects of structure, timelines, and potential pitfalls. The meeting evolved into a collaborative brainstorm, an exchange of the very uncertainties Mark sought to address. Something in that discussion reignited his zeal. It was no longer just Mark's vision, it was theirs. Yet, within the glow of engagement, unsettling thoughts began creeping back. While he could feel their interest stirring, there were lingering doubts in his mind, even fears of his own potential inadequacy in executing such an expansive vision. What if he couldn't lead effectively? What if the passion he cultivated wasn't enough to rally the troops? Deep down, he questioned, could he find lasting solutions to their genuine concerns while navigating his rising insecurities? That evening, Mark returned home, exhausted yet invigorated. He paced the living room, face knit in concentration, mentally dissecting the day's discussions. He scribbled notes as if trying to piece together a burgeoning puzzle. Each thought connected to the last, until one idea stood out, a workshop tapered specifically to address concerns and broaden understanding of mentorship philosophies. Not a lecture, but an interactive forum. Feeling an inkling of authenticity brewing within himself, Mark decided to put all reservations aside. He would advocate for that workshop unapologetically. But implementing it meant leaning into the very uncertainty he sought to navigate. Would his colleagues embrace a reshaping of what mentorship meant? His heart raced at the thought of presenting it. That workshop would demand vulnerability not just from others, but from him as well. How far was he willing to go to get them excited, to jolt the company's stagnant mindset? The next morning, with trepidation, he crafted an email to Jason. I want to propose a workshop. It can't just be about the program, it must become about creating a culture of learning, safety, and collaboration. As he hit send, he felt that familiar chill of uncertainty wash over him. Again, but now mixed with an electrifying hope. What would Jason's response be? Would it invite the skepticism he feared, or would it encourage him to take that leap further into the unknown? The reality loomed. He was about to challenge not just the company's beliefs, but the very foundations of his own. And that was the moment he understood every breakthrough required him to become not just a leader, but a learner in this journey. Mark leaned back in his chair, feeling the weight of potential consequences. Could he balance the scales of courage against the chaos uprising within? The next chapter loomed, and resolution lay just out of reach, its contours still obscured by the mists of uncertainty. What awaited him on the other side of this gamble would soon become a matter of fact or fallacy. The time had come for Mark Thompson to confront the echoes of his past and embrace the burgeoning possibilities of his future. As morning broke, he felt a clarity that had eluded him for so long. Today was pivotal, both in the professional realm and in his personal evolution. He donned his customary tailored suit but with an added weight of intention. This was no longer merely an armor. It was a declaration of who he had become, a man ready to integrate all facets of himself. After hitting send on an email confirming a crucial follow-up meeting with Jason, he arrived at the office with a sense of renewed motivation guiding his actions. Walking into the conference room for what would be their culminating discussion felt vital, every heartbeat radiated with purpose. His colleagues had fluctuated from skepticism to tentative interest, and now it was time to solidify that momentum into actions that would resonate beyond the confines of their office walls. As Mark approached the table, Jason was already there, studying a set of notes with a furrowed brow. Anxiety flickered within him as he recognized the shift in Jason, who had always been a cutthroat strategist, his razor-sharp focus solidifying the traditional norms of success. Today, though, everything felt different. There was no room for manipulation or superficiality. Authenticity was about to reign. Morning, Jason greeted him, his voice tinged with an urgency Mark couldn't quite place. It was this sense that laid the groundwork for their pivotal dialogue. I've been thinking. Your proposal about the workshop, it's ambitious, but I'll support it under one condition. Mark braced himself, suspending judgment as he leaned closer. What condition? We need measurable outcomes. I want to ensure that our shift to mentorship doesn't distract from our bottom line. We have to prove it works. A mixture of trepidation and excitement coursed through Mark. Jason, the culture shift is essential. This can't merely be about metrics, it's a qualitative movement as much as quantitative. Passion was bubbling forth as clarity emerged. The stakes couldn't merely be financially driven. It hinged upon genuine human connection, learned resilience, and integrity. Then let us make both happen, Jason replied, surprising Mark with a tentative smile. I'll support this, but you need to lead. If this fails, it's on you. The challenge hung thick in the air, but Mark felt something miraculous stirring within him. I accept that. But I want to do more than prove worth, I want to ignite a passion within us. Successful mentorship can reshape perspectives, even create a new operational paradigm. As he spoke, an authentic fire burned brightly in his chest, reflecting the journey that had brought him here. This wasn't just about mentorship, it was about connection, transformation, and reclamation of the narrative he had crafted alongside his past experiences. Days turned into weeks as Mark dove into the preparation for the workshop. The initial presenting anxiety gave way to exhilaration as colleagues began volunteering to draft elements. Slowly, the colleagues who had once held doubts transformed into advocates for the program, and he found himself surrounded by individuals who mirrored his commitment to genuine change. Connections blossomed, expanding beyond the confines of the corporate structure. The day of the workshop arrived, and nerves danced like fireflies in Mark's stomach. Stepping into the well-lit auditorium, he scanned the room, heart racing at the sight of eager faces, his colleagues who had chosen to invest themselves in this new endeavor. Sensing the collective anticipation filled with hope, Mark took a deep breath, allowing the energy of the room to enhance his own. With each interactive exercise, he watched barriers dissolve as tales of failure, success, and vulnerability filled the space between them. Colleagues who once sat cautiously at the perimeter of the discussion grew animated, sharing stories that painted an enlightened tapestry. Laughter fused seamlessly with raw stories of hardships and triumphs. It was proof that mentorship transcended the confines of conventional expectations, revealing strength within their shared human experience. As the workshop drew to a close, Mark's heart brimmed with elation. He had worked tirelessly to create a foundation that wasn't just about mandatory outcomes but about a culture nurtured through collective resilience. As he opened the floor for feedback, he was met with a chorus of enthusiasm, appreciation, and commitment. Mark, this workshop has changed how I view mentoring entirely, Amelia spoke up, her eyes shining brighter than ever. I never thought my failures would resonate so deeply with others. Her reflection echoed across the room, sparking a ripple effect of realization and acceptance. It was then Mark saw it, a spark igniting beyond expectations he had set, creating a nexus for new partnerships founded on mutual growth. The energy in that space bubbled over, transforming doubt into a clear signal. The seeds had been planted, and this transformation was nurtured from the roots of their true experiences rather than fabricated facades. After the applause faded, Mark found himself standing at the edge of a new precipice. This wasn't merely an accomplishment, it was an affront to the portrait he had been painted into. Life had transitioned from a singular narrative of metrics to a multifaceted experience, a community pulsing with vigor and authenticity. As the days rolled on, Mark accepted invitations to broader discussions, identifying opportunities to further extend their initiatives, building on the mentorship program, creating networks of support, and ensuring the mission endured beyond one workshop. Jason watched in awe as Mark blossomed, a confidence established through trials and triumphs gleamed in every interaction. No longer just the man wrapped in gilded achievements, Mark had emerged a leader, a guide, and a genuine force for change. His heart was now a beacon of hope, reminding him that true success resided there, in the stories shared, the lives impacted, and the connections ignited. In the end, Mark proved to himself and everyone around him that he had conquered not just the apprehension through his workplace but the fear that once held him captive. He had transformed, he had built his bridge, and with every step forward, he forged a path toward unimagined potential, leaving behind the shadows of the past. And so, with deliberate intention, he continued the journey, a firm believer that true meaning is woven from the fabric of experience, resilience, and an unwavering commitment to empowering others. Mark Thompson had finally stepped into his authentic self, emerging as a worthy architect of change. Now, dear viewers, the chapter of this incredible story has come to an end, but the journey of personal transformation has only just begun. You need to subscribe now to remain updated on more exclusive emotional narratives that inspire and empower. Leave a like now to support the channel and feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. We can't wait to hear your insights. Don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to experience this uplifting conclusion. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting our channel through these actions. Your engagement is invaluable.